Hey, everybody. Welcome to the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Hey, what we do on this podcast is talk about what B2B sales and marketing leaders, operators, and experts are doing today to really break through and grow their businesses at exponential levels. Let's get it in the interview. At the end, I'll give you an update on my courses, and you can check out my website at b2brevenue.com, and it's Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn. Hey, Mark, thanks for joining us today as way of getting started. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I run a sales team here at 6 Cents and have been in various sales capacities over the last 13 years, both as an individual contributor as well as a leader over the last several years.
Cool. What's it like going from a big brand to a startup? Is a little bit of a change, or?
I made the jump from Oracle to 6 Cents. Quite a change, but I think the best thing is that you get involved in a lot more decisions and you can move a lot faster.
Yeah.
So it's been fun to see, how a company builds a growth program and be able to move quick.
Yeah. Cool. How have you seen sales change in the last 5 or 10 years?
I think it's changed considerably. I would say mainly that it's in response to the way companies want to buy now has changed, right? So it's kind of forced to change to the way sellers need to sell, but it's getting harder for us because buyers are much more informed and they want to push the sales engagement to the end of their buying stage, as opposed to 10 years ago, they'd submit a lead expecting to learn all about you and talk to a rep, right? It doesn't happen anymore today.
Yeah. Well, especially like with new technologies, they may not even know you exist.
That's right. That's right. And how many more with the evolution of SaaS? There's just so many companies out there. So many more. It's confusing.
Yeah. So how do you fix this, or how do you adapt to it?
Sure. The first thing that we talk to sales leaders a lot about is that, in order to run a successful sales program, everything is based around prioritizing a rep's time, right? And prioritization is such a challenge when you've got a whole market that you can go after, but at the same time, you've got buyers who really don't want to listen until they're really kind of ready to listen.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about how do you get insights into who's ready to have those dialogues so that you can prioritize your time and work deals that are actually in market, right? Work accounts that are ready for an engagement with you.
Yeah, because I think today most reps go in and they're using some kind of CRM system, and it doesn't do a very good job sorting things. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to follow up from last 2 weeks, but is that account likely to buy? Where are they?
That's right.
How do they look like our A-level accounts?
That's right. Exactly. And it's not only the accounts, but it's the contacts, right? Yeah. So the other change over the last 10 years is just, when you guys talk a lot about it on your podcast, but it's, the buying committee keeps getting bigger. So how do you, as a seller, not only focus on the right, accounts, but how do you get across the whole buying committee to try and get a good deal in the works?
Yeah. You got to find out who they are. And I think the number one reason a deal dies is they're single threaded, stuck with that one person. And they don't
That's
understand
right.
how companies buy. There's
That's
no
right.
decision maker at a company. And
that's right.
Go talk to Mr. Big Cheese, and he's going to just approve something.
You got it.
So how do you work with your team? Because you have a pretty tough sell.
We do. We're in the ABM space, right? And ABM is a hot market. I like to say ABM is a kind of a natural response to, the death of a lead-oriented business model, right? You mentioned being single-threaded. that's always one of the challenges with a lead, is a contact that comes in, right? So we're in the space where now, we're focused on how do you go to market towards accounts. And our team, we have a traditional BDR program, and then we have an enterprise field sales team and an SMB sales team. So we have a lot of outbound efforts, and we use tool sets like, Sales Loft, for example, and other programs to get our outreach there. But we focus on, leveraging our own product actually to get the accounts at the top of the list and the contacts at the top of the list. So when we're making our calls every day, it's the highest likely to convert to an opportunity to the lowest. And it's been working out well.
Yeah. And have you guys thought of applying the technology into the individual and what that individual personally cares about, not just the company?
So we've spent a lot of time talking about that. And what's funny is that, the privacy it plays a big piece in our space, right? So there are, believe it or not, there's more things we actually know about the contacts, but likely we can't disclose.
Yeah.
But when they do raise their hand in a manner which is okay, like, for example, just basic things like, hey, someone's cookied and they come back to your website, we're able to pick up on that engagement and trigger off notifications to reps saying, hey, someone from the buying committee at a company that's also, researching your competitor just came back to the site. Now's the time to call them.
Yeah. Because I think that is really the real value. I mean, knowing somebody's in market is good, but what do they care about? What do they want to hear about? How do they fit compared to the other people that have bought the product? So that you're talking about
right.
What they care about, not what you care about.
Exactly. And the beauty is that there is more and more data out there that could give you kind of indicators to what they care about. But at the end of the day, you're right. We've got to do a good job taking all those indicators and then crafting a relevant, outreach. Yeah.
And what do you see working maybe for your team or your clients when, the people are standoffish? They're not going to contact you or communicate unless they need something. So the rep has to build that rapport and value of not just relationship, but of contribution. And everybody talks about content, but, content is in the eyes of the beholder, right? It's like, a white paper that I don't care about, thank you, right?
That's right. So your question was kind of, what do we see working for us or with our clients? Well, the first is that, the concept of timing, it takes a big piece of that challenge out, right? They're just more apt to listen when they're ready, or they have a problem where, they've just left a meeting and they're like, okay, we've got a pipeline issue now. How are we going to go fix it? Or we've got this problem. And we know that they're apt for, their ears are ready to listen. The next is we spend a lot of time focusing on the persona and the buying committee, like we talked about. So aligning content with your outreach that's relevant is huge. So, we work with the Uber Flips and those guys as partners of ours, so that as the marketing team builds relevant content to the persona, they're also building content to the buying stage, which is really cool. So if we know that, our clients know that, hey, these are accounts that are really cold, they're just beginning the research. Maybe the content when they come to the site is focused on, why our market, as opposed to what differentiates us with our next two competitors. Or if we know someone is imminently ready to buy, and we also know what competitor they're talking to, when they come to the site or when they hit your chat bot or when they call sales, we ought to have content ready that talks about how do we differ from that competitor. And that, helps with the relevancy of the message.
Yeah. Because I see this enormous gap between like the outbound SDR group that just pounds the rubble. Right.
Yeah. Right.
And then the AEs that are working on in-market, in-funnel active deals that, they're going to buy something, might not be yours or mine. It might be someone else's. But there's nobody really developing the middle, people who should be interested, but haven't surfaced yet. And they need to be educated, guided, nudged, and walk through why they should be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you seeing that, or are you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we talked earlier, like a rep's time is so thin always that middle ground, they lose the bandwidth or the capacity to nurture so many companies.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think we have a good example at 6 Sense where that's where our marketing team really comes in and helps, right? So when sales, and we talk a lot about this kind of out in the field, but, you know, a true like ABM program should have marketing, you know, tied at the hip with sales on, you know, all accounts at every stage of the funnel. So maybe those, when you talked about the people in the middle of the funnel, they're still not ready for a sales meet, you know, deep dialogue, but they're also not ice cold. They're somewhere in the middle. How does sales leverage data, right, and insights to continue nurturing them, educating them, and personalizing the experience wherever they can, so that, you know, when they're finally ready for that dialogue, you know, their brand is first in mind, right? Yeah. And ultimately, you know, we've built a lot of business cases, and ROI is just around, you know, first in wins. So everything we do is oriented around how are you the first person or company that they talk to when they're ready to start the program or their process. So you can help construct the sales criteria and ultimately put yourself in a position to win.
Yeah. And have you sold to marketing before?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Marketers are, you know, I would say the divide between who owns 6 Sense, for example, is a pretty even split between a head of sales and a head of marketing. But historically, yeah, marketers have been the true owners of our program.
Yeah. And are they easier than sales, or are they harder? Or?
Definitely different personalities to work with, right? Yeah, we find selling to marketers, their challenge is that, you know, they're expected to prove that whatever they do actually drives pipeline, yeah. But it's still so hard for them to prove it. And that's why, you know, every CMO is stressed out because they, you know, they want to show contribution, but it's really hard to attribute their work in. So when we talk to marketers, it's a lot of that is around, hey, we find like we actually have a way for you to know that your efforts drove companies down the funnel, right? And we can report on that and prove that value to you so that you go back to your board and, you know, with success metrics. And when we have that message with marketing leaders, that starts to resonate because it's been an age-old issue for them.
Yeah, that is their issue. And ABM was supposed to at least, you know, put a process in for that, you know,
that's
okay,
right.
You target N number of accounts and some subset closes, you know, does it matter how you closed it? Not really.
No. Yeah. Did it close? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's one, did we open up opportunity? And then two, yeah, how well did that convert to a sale? But you're right. That's exactly right.
And where do you see this technology going? Because I see this as kind of the future of both marketing and sales, because, you know, the cold outreach, you know, is so poorly done today and so often done. You know, I call it dodumbthingsfaster.com. You know, it's just,
that's right.
You're giving children machine guns.
That's right.
And telling,
that's right.
And they're destroying the market for everybody, you know.
Yeah. I think the answer is, the future is less outreach, right? So that when it's time, your message stands out. We do a lot of work with sales acceleration platforms, like our friends at like Outreach or SalesLoft, those guys, you know, they have the machine gun, right, to get, as you said, to get messages out fast. But I think where it's going is how much smarter can we make the outreach? And, the evolution of big data and AI, we should be able to do it smarter so that when a BDR shows up to work, their day in one of those programs is just optimized, top to bottom. So I do see less messaging, on the ad front. It's an interesting evolution of what's happening with like the advertising space with ABM, but again, less ads overall, more higher spend ads targeted at the buying committees at companies that are ready to get your message out in front of them is another, I think, another place where this is evolving pretty quickly.
And that's it, because what I see working, I talk to, pretty much tons of people in marketing, is that the more face-to-face, high value, no pitching opportunities you have, not trade shows, but I've talked to people who do these boards, these meetups, these groups, like CMO groups that are highly targeted, maybe sponsored by the vendor, but there's no pitch. You're not tortured for a half an hour to get 2 hours of value. It's like, who's there, and you get to know them as people and what they're facing. And what used to be called selling.
Yeah. We do. I couldn't agree more. I mean, we do a lot of that. A lot of it's culturing communities too, so that, actually remove the seller completely from the equation and just get people into the same room that have the same issues, so they can share, how they're grappling with it. If you want to get real good content going, you create those types of communities, and but we can listen in, with technology, you can understand what's going on, but you're letting them engage with each other. And that's really what helps them drive their own careers and, get better at their job.
Right. Because they all have the problem, but they don't want to hear about a solution until they really understand the problem and how it can possibly be solved. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Because especially, even though there might be not a lot of people who do what you do, there's a lot of people who do stuff for marketing. Right. And they've got the kids with the machine guns and the power dialers hounding them all the time. And they don't understand the difference. And it's like, I don't have another 15 minutes to give for a product that I don't even know if I have a need for or not. And I think that old fashioned, communication, networking, and real value, not just, an ebook, something that's
exactly.
Yeah.
And the way we're kind of thinking about it is, anytime, an account engages with you, or you have an opportunity to engage, how it's like a race to how relevant can we be, right? You mentioned earlier, and how well can we predict what it is that they want to learn, right? So that we're getting that information in front of them, whether it's, what issues are they actively trying to fix? And when they hit your site, boom, there's content ready for them that, just so happens to be there. Hey, maybe it's even personalized to their brand. But, where it's going is that combination of like, your outreach across sales and marketing, but when they finally get the chance to engage, whether they're just anonymously engaging or they're kind of raising their hand saying, I want to engage, I think buyers expect now us to know a lot more about them so that we don't waste their time, right? We get right to the point, we can help them out.
Yeah, I think they want to see what the world can be like after they've gone through the journey with you. And
that's right.
Yeah. Are you finding too many marketers are still worried about marketing automation and, the 10-year-old? How many of them are?
Yeah, that's a good question. Great. We debate this a lot. So, marketing automation is still so important for the mass outreach, but where they're trying to get is obviously a lot more targeted, because people just tune out. They unsubscribe, they tune out, and next thing you know, marketing automation's out. And the other kind of fundamental issue with traditional marketing automation is it's still built on the concept of a lead. Yes. Right? It's not built on the foundation of a set of prospect companies. It's a contact, right. And a contact is one person again. So, where we see it going is, people are definitely grappling with, well, then kind of how do we optimize the spend with like a Marketo or whoever they're working with? And those platforms now have the ability to consume lots of external data that can make it smarter. But absolutely, to my earlier point, less is more. So, gone are the days of just blanketing your account list every week on Thursday with, some messaging.
Yeah. Have any agencies kind of surfaced to basically build out a marketing stack for a particular industry or segment so that they could kind of outsource a lot of this?
Yes, actually. So, and we work with a lot of the agencies who, built their business on the back of the boom of like the Eloquas and Marketos that have now shifted to, hey, we need, companies need an account-based stack.
Yeah.
So how does that look? It's kind of different now. What does that look like? So you're, those agencies are very much now transitioning their businesses to be able to build an ABM program that encompasses things like, ads and, data sources and marketing automation and integrating with the CRM systems. And we're working with a lot of them to, continue to sign partnerships so that they get certified on our platform and they know how to, consult with us too. But yeah, there's a lot of great shops popping up, building businesses on that now for sure. It's worth noting, like it's not a small effort to like flip your go-to-market program when you're so used to a lead, marketer at the board, they're still being asked like MQL numbers and leads. And if they're truly going to evolve, they've got to tear it apart and rebuild it kind of upside down. And that means changing the metrics that they are hitting. We stop talking about MQLs and leads and we start talking about, how much of the market that we could sell to is engaged.
Yeah.
And how well are we selling to the companies that are ready to buy? Are we effectively getting in front of them? That's the metric that they need to be caring about. What is our in-market TAM?
Yes.
And how well are we engaging them as opposed to how many leads did we produce last quarter?
Right, because we're no longer blinded to the market. Technology has surfaced. We know the whole TAM. You know who they are.
That's right.
You know the people, the names, the phone numbers, the email addresses. You don't need a lead anymore. You'd like to know who's already searching, who's already reading, who's most likely to be open to what we're doing, who's a early adopter versus a laggard. Those are the things you need. You don't need anyone's email address anymore. You can figure that out on your own.
You got it. Absolutely. Our CMO, Latney Conant, talks a lot about evolving the conversation from, your TAM to your in-market TAM. Yeah. And that's all you're focused on, right? Is we got to capitalize. And when we work with sellers and sales organizations, everything that we're doing is, how many days earlier can we get you into an account that's in a buying stage? So, hey, we identified this company was kind of approaching in market. They're starting their research. They're interested, but maybe they're talking to your competitors and not you. How well are we getting reps in the door earlier, so that they are a part of that discussion? And we know the earlier they get in, obviously the more, the less deals they miss completely, but their win rates go up. And they're not focused on the crap ops that, are never going to close anyway.
Right. Yeah. So having some webinar for unemployed consultants, right? It's like those people are going to buy. And I think
you got it.
It's always been a game of detective work, but now we have real tools. We have DNA, that we didn't have before.
Right.
Now, given that you've been there long enough to kind of get your feet underneath you, what would you have done differently if you had to do it all over?
You were relating to here at 6 Cents or in what context?
Yeah, I'm sure you learned a lot in the last year and a half, right?
Yeah. So I just hit my 2-year mark here.
2 more years.
Yeah, no, it's been by far my first startup. So what would I have done differently? I would have 100, but totally different topic. I would have hired a lot faster.
Yeah.
I totally underestimated the criticality of hiring to hit, a capacity model to make sure that we've got the numbers coming in on target with the board. That's such a hard thing to do, is in a market that's, in an economy that's hot, is hiring is so hard.
It is.
I would have put more time behind that if I would have picked one thing.
Cool. Great. And where can people go to connect with you and learn more about your company?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to chat. Send me a message on LinkedIn, or hit us up on sixthsense.com, and we'll help you from there. But certainly reach out to me. Happy to help.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Hey, I want to make sure you're checking out b2brevenue.com. That is where you can get a free copy of an ebook that I did. It's a real ebook. It's not a fluff book. It shows and talks about how companies make buying decisions and how you can influence that from both a marketing and a sales standpoint, how to find all the people that are in the decision path and what they need to see, know, and touch and feel before they make a product selection. If your team needs some coaching, some help, some training, some systems, some processes that do work today, because we know what doesn't work, or what doesn't work, I'll show you what does work and how to connect and get into pretty much any account. It includes deal coaching and content, community, and I can customize it for your particular company. Just go to b2brevenue.com, look under training, schedule a call with me. We can talk it over, or just sign up. You can pay per month or all at once, whichever makes most sense for your budget. Also, I put out videos pretty much daily on LinkedIn and on YouTube. On LinkedIn, it's Brian G. Burns, and on YouTube, it's Brian Burns Sales. Just search for that if you like to consume some video content. And if you see me on LinkedIn, please put a comment and a share and a like on some of the videos. I really appreciate it. I've got a company page for each podcast. This one, the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast, where I put both content and humor videos out daily. And tell a friend about the podcast. Really appreciate you listening. Check out the show notes for all the partners and the connections you can make there, the coupon codes for the products to evaluate them, see if they're a right match for you. And we'll see you next time.